Welcome to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Caplan.
This week on What Do You Want to Do, my special guest, longtime personal friend, as he would say in his words, T.C. Restani. We've known each other almost 40 years, I think, right?
Long enough, Leonard. It's long enough that I've known you. But yeah, it's definitely going on. I think it's actually about 31 years.
31 years.
31 years. But if you want to round it up to 40, that's you can do that. It's the new math.
I have trouble enough with the old math.
That's why I still use my fingers.
The concept of What Do You Want to Do is how you came to do what you want to do. And you've been doing it for 30 years at least, or more than that. You've had a long, distinguished career. Your TV show is great. Your podcast is great. You have very eclectic guests on your show.
That's a big word, Len. Eclectic.
I had one of your guests on a few months ago, and I'm about to show it this Saturday, my episode with David Breen.
David Breen, Captain Fork Tongue himself?
Yes.
Unbelievable out there. But as you stated, Len Caplan, we have been associates and friends for, 31 years. And I grew up in beautiful Atlantic City, New Jersey for the first 3.5 years of my life. Then I migrated north to Boston, Massachusetts, and the rest is history. No. I always wanted to get involved in the television industry, and I had friends and family that were in the entertainment industry out in Las Vegas, Nevada. And during the summers in the mid-1980s, I would venture out to my uncle's little dive club called the Damp Napkin. And I would see all the has-beens and who-whatses and whatnots on the way down from the top of the entertainment ladder. And I always got a vibe from it saying, this is something that T.C. Restani could do. Well, lo and behold, after summer vacations out in Las Vegas, I came back to Boston, and I was very infatuated with the sport of professional wrestling. Of course, you are well known for as being the first person to do a television show about professional wrestling called Wrestling Talk, started in 1987. Well, a few years later, I saw you on TV, and I was like, wait a minute. I could do this show. I could host a show like this. I want to be involved in this program. So I called up the establishment that you were working at and said, listen, I'm T.C. Restani. I want to be an entertainer, and I love the world of professional wrestling. I want to be part of the program. You graciously invited me down into your world of wrestling talk, but you didn't give me the co-host seat or any type of host seat right away. I had to earn my stripes, and the first job I had on Wrestling Talk was answering the phones because you did a live call-in show. And I remember the phone number, 581-9061.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I worked my way through the ranks of Wrestling Talk. I went from phone screener to doing camera to running audio to eventually directing the show, and eventually, having a lot of input behind the scenes on Wrestling Talk. And it kind of got my feet wet in the television industry. I learned a lot of the trade there, and I branched out and started doing my own shows, and then eventually the award-winning After Hours with T.C. Restani.
That's quite a history. Now you're forgetting one skill that you were particularly adept at, and that was set design.
It's true. My friend, the late, great Steve Heff, and I used to come down many hours before you would show up for your own broadcast and design your set. We would have every picture from Pro Wrestling Illustrated or the WWF magazine, and we had them pristinely placed behind your makeshift ring where you and your co-host, the wonderful Ed Whittier, would talk about professional wrestling. So, yes, your set, thanks to me and the late, great Steve Heff.
Yes. Now, maybe my memory is a little dulled after so many years, but did you not meet the late, great Paul Fay?
I did on the very tail end of Paul Fay's tenure on Wrestling Talk. One of the first shows, actually, I think the first couple shows where I was a phone screener, you and Paul were still hosting the show. So that's talking about probably like 1990.
That was definitely 1990 because he passed away on January 8th, 1991.
which was Elvis's birthday.
Yes, it was, and that's a whole other story we'll go into on another
I
show.
admired Paul's sideburns. I like my sideburns, but I admired Paul's sideburns. But I saw the Dungeon Master shave them off on an episode prior to me becoming the phone screener.
Yes. Oh, that was an infamous time.
It was.
Yeah.
And the Dungeon Master got us suspended from Wrestling Talk by my boss at the time.
I was not there for that one. I'm sadly I missed that episode. I was not there for that because I would have loved to have seen that live. I've seen it on tape, but I never saw it. I wish I was there live. You know, it would have been an honor to have been taken out by the Dungeon Master with a chair.
If you survived.
If I survived, yeah. And there's a weird rumor that the Buddha is related to my co-host, Colonel Bull Montana. I don't think there's any connection there at all, but you never know.
Well, the Buddha hardly speaks. So
Well, neither does Bull, so...
Now, you have a lot of other talents as well. You're a video editor, and you know a lot about production, even though you don't have to do it these days because you have other people doing that for you.
Well, of course, I'm the award-winning host. I can't push all the buttons, Len.
That's right. Now, did you ever meet Johnny Carson? He's one of your idols.
Excuse me, Len. I got a little cough there. It's not COVID, by the way. No, I never met Johnny Carson because he was untouchable. You couldn't get near him. He was the king of late night television. I've met other late night talk show hosts like Jay Leno and David Letterman and Arsenio Hall, but I never actually got the chance to meet the king of late night. And he died. His final show was in May of 1992, and then he became a recluse. He was kind of like a hermit. No one ever saw him again. And then he passed away in 2005. So I never got the opportunity to meet Johnny Carson in the flesh, but I have prayed at the altar of his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in Hollywood, California.
You are a student and an admirer of the 80s, particularly Star Wars and all things 80s. What settled you on this? What made you so enamored of this?
Well, it's a simple logistics question, Len. I was born in 1971, so my teenage years were in the 1980s. So it's kind of like, you were born in the 30s, so the 50s was kind of been your age.
I was born in 56.
I know. I'm just kidding with you. You were born like 6 months before Colonel Bull Montana.
Yes.
But, that's basically what it was. I was born in the 1970s, and, everything was brand new to us of my generation. To think about it. Cable television came into existence when I was a kid. Color TV was really came into existence in the early to mid 1970s. So I rarely remember black and white television, and rabbit ears on my television only really existed in my household for about 8 years of my life until I got cable television.
I wonder what you would have thought if you lived in the 50s and 60s, how you would be different.
Well, you know what? I don't think many people in the 50s or 60s would have had talk show hosts as idols because there really wasn't that genre really hadn't started really yet when you think about it, especially in the 50s. I mean, Carson took over in 1962 when there were two hosts before him, but, it wasn't like a household thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I beg to differ with you. I think that Steve Allen started the talk show, started the format, and then Jack Parr took over from him. Jack Parr was more of a political host than Steve Allen, who was a comedian. And then Johnny Carson, I would say, just in my view anyway, he was a blend of the two, Steve Allen and Jack Parr, because he did a little bit of everything. And as my friend Vinnie McCoy always says, Johnny was there to charm the audience.
And put people to bed.
Exactly, and that's pretty much what he did. He would have people like Henry Kissinger on, but he would also have Groucho Marx on.
And Charo.
And Charo, yes.
Coochie.
He wasn't quite as trendy as Bob Hope was. Bob would always have the flavor of the month, Brooke Shields or somebody like that, and whoever was hot at the moment. And yeah, he was more, I don't know about Bob Hope.
Bob Hope was a pervert, is what you're saying, Len.
I'm not saying that.
Well, I'll say it. He's dead. What do I care? He's a pervert.
All right, TC.
But he had good taste because he kind of introduced to the world Raquel Welch.
He did. Yes. in your career, TC, you've had everybody from Pat Morita to the Iron Sheik to Bull Montana to myself. Who was your most unusual guest or controversial guest?
Oh, okay. Well, obviously the most famous guest I've had on the program, no offense, Len, was definitely Pat Morita. That was our inaugural episode where I had Pat Morita and Sherman Hemsley, who played George Jefferson on The Jeffersons for like 12 years. They were on our inaugural episode, and I will never forget the image out of my head, sitting at the desk, and to my immediate right is Pat Morita. In the middle was Sherman Hemsley, and wedged at the end was Colonel Bull Montana. And I just want to know the reaction of Pat Morita and Sherman Hemsley saying, who is this guy at the end of the couch that's over there grunting and making all these noises? That's what I wanted to know. That's what I want to know is going on inside their head at that moment.
Probably won't tell me the answer to this, but now at the time, that was your inaugural episode. Nobody knew who TC was. How in the blue hell, to coin the Rock's phrase, did you get them on the show?
Okay, well, being that I am TC Restani and have a good reputation in the entertainment industry, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret, Len, all right? That show, my inaugural show, was recorded on May 29th, 2003. It just so happened that a couple towns away, in a little tiny regional theater, Pat Morita and Sherman Hemsley were going to do a revival of The Odd Couple. And I found out that they were going to be there. I called the HR, the press secretary over there at the theater, told them who I was, what we were doing, and they were thrilled to have any publicity. You got to remember, this is before social media, YouTube, or anything like that. So any type of television exposure, people were going to get a Woody over. So they came down to the program. Pat Morita, may he rest in peace, was an alcoholic. It's not a secret. And he never made it to opening night of the play because he forgot all his lines and whatnot, and the play let him go. So on the opening night, it was Sherman Hemsley and the understudy doing The Odd Couple. Needless to say, people wanted to see the TV stars on stage. They found out the understudy was there, ticket sales plummeted, and the show was canceled within a week.
Good grief! But you had him. You had Pat Morita.
I may have contributed to that little episode because he had plenty of white wine that night that we had catered for the inaugural episode. So who knows? Maybe after I was at TC Restani, pulled the lights and the curtain down on that show rather quickly.
Wow! I never knew that story. You never told me that. That's
now you know.
Funny. Unbelievable. And I like some of your catchphrases on the show, and elsewhere you have written where some of those originated with your own idols, like Unbelievable and
all that.
Unbelievable. Now, do you want to know where Unbelievable came from?
Where?
Vince McMahon.
No kidding. Okay, I didn't
Back
know
and
that.
watch his old commentary back in the 80s and early 90s. He would always have someone having to go, unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true.
I stole it from Vince. Why not?
There's another saying that you have that you got from the late, great Tony Rumble, and that was the 411. What's the 411, you always say?
Well, the 411, Tony Rumble was a great friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and, of course, best friend of Colonel Bull Montana. And that's what he used to say during his promos. I'm going to give you the 411, which was basically information. When you dial 411, you're calling the operator to get information. It was just street talk, a street slang for information.
It's also great shorthand talk.
Right.
It just saves a lot of time.
Right. So just give me like we were doing it right now. We're going, Len, give me the 411 on your podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, the podcast is brand new, and I don't know where it's going. It's just fun to do. I always wanted to do a show like this.
Well, there you go. And there's the 411. Quick and to the point.
The point is, for this show, is I'm trying to get people, if they listen, when they listen, to realize that they too can do whatever they want to do.
Absolutely.
That's why I have the name of the show.
To quote my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future, Dr. Emmett Brown says in the movie, if you can put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Great line, great philosophy.
There you go.
Now, what's the most surprised you've ever been on that show?
The most surprised I've ever been on the show, oh my goodness. There's so many of them. Probably not getting attacked by one of the wild animals that we used to have on the program. We used to have a guy who used to have his own private zoo out in Western Massachusetts, and he used to bring in exotic animals like giant 300-year-old turkeys and skunks and badgers and all these crazy animals. And he brought on one time a crocodile. You know what? The mouth was taped up, but at any moment these animals could have gone berserk and done some real damage to us. So I was kind of on the edge of my seat when we had those animals on the program.
Wow, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I'm stealing your phrases tonight, TC.
That's okay. I'll send you a bill.
Yeah. Now, okay, so it's been going on. You were off for a while and just doing podcasts. Give us the 411 on that.
All right. Like I said, we started the show in May of 2003 and went 10 years to 2013, doing shows monthly. We didn't do it weekly. We didn't do it nightly like the regular talk show host. It was just a monthly type of thing that we did. And to be all honest, we got burnt out. I got burnt out after doing the show for 10 years. We had people on our crew got married. People on our show got married, had kids, started their own lives. So it was kind of like, you know what? Let's take a break. We need a little break. We've been doing this for 10 years. We won 5 first-place awards in those 10 years. And I said, you know what? Let's take a year off. 1 year became 2 years, became 4 years. So in 2017, we built a brand new set, and we were ready to rock and roll, ready to do shows once a month. And then out of nowhere, I have a heart issue, and I have to go in for open heart surgery. So that kind of put a blockage in the situation of the production of the program. I didn't let anybody know, other than like my immediate family and people I know on the show. I didn't want anybody to call me up and give me their fake sympathy. So I called you after I had my surgery. I had my surgery on a Monday. And after recovery and whatnot, I started calling people on Wednesday, Thursday, because I was in the hospital for a whole week. And I let people I know, in on it. And they were like, well, gee, thanks for telling me. And, it wasn't something I was going to brag about. Right. And as we record this, Len, it's kind of a weird coincidence. We were recording this on the night before my 3rd anniversary of that operation.
Amazing. Now, that's another thing that I've never known a human being in my life with a memory like yours. Is it officially a photographic memory?
No, I'm not Mary Lou Henner from Taxi who can recall every second of her life. No, that's the truth. You know about that, right?
Yes, but it's pretty damn close. You remember things that I long for. If I do my own autobiography someday, I'm going to have to consult you.
Well, I have known you for 31 years, and most of those pivotal big events that happen on your program, I was there, so I remember these things. But I wouldn't say I have a photographic memory. I mean, if you throw out a date at me for something, in my mind, it's like a Rolodex, and I can kind of pinpoint the general location of it, not the exact second or what I had for lunch that day or what I was wearing and whatnot. But it's in that general ballpark.
Shall I try that now?
Sure. We may have to edit this out, but sure, go ahead.
Right. When was our interviews with the Honky Tonk Man and others at the Melrose Middle School?
Okay, that would have been, now you interviewed the Honky Tonk Man a couple of times. The first time was at Stackpole Field in August of 1991. But the one you're referring to took place in March of 1994. And the Honky Tonk Man took on Jimmy Superfly Snuka that night.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Because we had Hercules Hernandez was there.
No, Hercules Hernandez, that was 1992, and that was at the Locke Middle School in Billerica, Massachusetts.
Good grief, that was 2 different incidents, and they blend together in my mind.
Right, and they were 2 years apart.
Wow, I wish I had your memory. Unbelievable. Now, do you show any signs of that diminishing at all, or is it just getting better?
No, sometimes I have to, think about it for a few minutes. I mean, I'm getting up there in age, it's not as quick as it used to be. I don't have total recall as much as I did. But if it's important things like when I'm talking to you, like the things that you mentioned about the wrestling and whatnot, that usually pops in there rather quickly because I remember it. Because remember, those incidents were the first time I was meeting these people on a face-to-face basis rather than seeing one on the television screen. So those things are very important in my life, meeting celebrities and whatnot. So I know exactly when and where I met most of these celebrities.
Do you remember when we used to eat at the Pancake House?
No, I remember when we used to eat. I remember we used to eat at Bickford's. It wasn't the Pancake House.
That's right. Bickford's is what I mean.
Actually, yes, I do. In Wellington Circle in Medford, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that is amazing. So, after when we used to do the show, our wrestling talk show over there, we would go out to there afterwards and have a meal. And some crazy shenanigans went on.
I remember our good friend, the New Hampshire Nightmare, was with us several times, and I remember what he ordered every single time we went to Bickford's.
And
what was that?
The Burger Banquet with onion rings.
Wow. Oh, the poor guy. Gee.
Rest in peace. We've lost a lot of good friends in our wrestling bubble then over the last 30 years.
We really did. The most recently, Lauren Doucette, and like you say, the New Hampshire Nightmare, and
The Jackal.
The Jackal I would see every Sunday.
Yeah. The Tony Rumble, Paul Fay, Steve Heff.
Yeah.
The sad list goes on. And they all died way too young.
Everybody has their time, I guess, and there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. Just keep the good times rolling, I guess.
Well, Bull Montana's going to outlive us all. He's like a cockroach. I mean, he may be only 65 years old, but I think he's been alive for about 400 years. He just tells everybody he's 65.
I first encountered him on the CB radio when I guess I was 13 and he was 15 or something like that.
No, you're about the same age. You're born in the same year.
So we were both 15 then, or I was 14.
He's a little. If he's 65, I'm going to be 65 in a month and a day, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. I mean, you're in the same general vicinity.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard legendary tales about him on the CB. I wish someone recorded those 100 years ago. I would have loved to have heard him on there.
Yeah, he was on 24/7. He was really aboard with that gimmick.
And did he use the handle Ringo?
He did. Everybody in Revere knows him as Ringo. Nobody knows him as anything else.
No, in Winthrop and Revere, he's known as Ringo. Outside of that territory, he's known as Bull Montana.
Yeah.
Very few people in this world know his real name, and I know it, but I'm not going to reveal it ever.
Right. I know it too, and I won't reveal it ever.
Right.
I do address him that way. I think I'm the only one.
His own family calls him Ringo.
Wow.
Every time I call there, I go, yeah, is Ringo there? Never have I uttered his real name, ever.
Let's talk about your two co-hosts, Sabrina, and your newest co-host from England. And I want to know this. Tell us the 411, TC. Is there a rivalry there? Do they know each other?
Well, actually, they're not. Well, technically they were co-hosts, but both of them served as executive producer of my late night talk show. Now,
Right,
Sabrina Champagne Kane was my executive producer from 2005 until we took our little hiatus around 2013. And, she didn't leave the program. She got a promotion in Restani Productions. And, like everybody else, she moved on with life and whatnot. And this was the time we were doing our podcast, so I really didn't need an executive producer to go out and get guests or anything. This was just me and my cohorts, shooting the crap around a table. But then when we wanted to do the television show again, I called Sabrina up and said, listen, would you be interested? And she says, absolutely not. I'm fine with my position that I have in Restani Productions right now, but let's put out a search. And I said, okay, you can do that. She goes, then she called me like 2 days later. She goes, I forget the search. I was watching the YouTube channel and I have found the perfect person. And I go, who? She goes, why don't you hire, or I will hire, the lovely and talented Miss Abigail Harwich. And I go, perfect. So I did an interview with Abigail and I said, listen, would you be interested in being the executive producer of the program? She had talked to Sabrina, off camera. The deal was made.
Amazing.
So there is no rivalry because
Yeah.
Sabrina has like I said, a huge up position in Restani Productions, and Abigail is getting her feet wet as the executive producer. Now I feel bad for her right now because she got hired when we thought, COVID was only going to be around for a few months, and it's going to be lingering on for for the foreseeable future. So she really hasn't gotten her feet wet on being an executive producer by getting guests and whatnot. But she has thrived as my co-host on the podcast, and she has her own Twitter page where you can go talk to her. It's at After Hours Abby. She interacts with fans from all over the world. She's the best. She is fantastic. She's one of the greatest additions we've ever had to this program.
I've gone to the Twitter, and I know she has a calendar as well, right?
No, she's going to be doing a calendar for next year. Now, remember, Sabrina was our executive producer for, 8 years. And she did everything. She did, she co-hosted, she brought in guests, but she also did a very popular calendar around 2010. We hired a photographer, and we did a ton of photos of Sabrina. We had a 2010 Sabrina calendar. And Abby heard about that and came up to me and said, listen, I'd be interested in doing something like that. She talked to Sabrina, and we're going to be doing an Abigail Howard 2022 calendar.
That's great.
So we have a whole year to take some photos and whatnot, and she has carte blanche of whatever she wants to do on the on a calendar. Now, interesting story about how I met Abigail was I was at a Comic-Con. I go to Comic-Cons all the time. I love Comic-Cons. Love them. They're fantastic. I was at a Comic-Con, a small one, not a major one, and I heard this British accent screaming from across the hall, TC, TC. And I turned around, and here was this little blonde girl running up to me in a Harry Potter outfit. And she told me the whole story, how she was the wand double on the later Harry Potter movies over in England. So basically what a wand double was, they didn't use the actress's hands for close-ups of doing the, waving the wand and whatnot. She was the wand double. And she didn't get the proper credit, so they, she had her attorneys or whoever and whatnot, a whole, mumbo-jumbo of lawsuits and whatnot going on over in England and whatnot. And she moved, she lives here anyway. She's lived here for most of her entire life. She was born and raised in England for like 3 years and then moved here. But she has her accent, and I asked her, how do you keep that accent? She goes, well, my grandmom and my grandpa and my mum are all from England, and it just stuck. So that's why she's, she lives here in Massachusetts and has lived here in Massachusetts for 20 years, but she just doesn't get rid of the accent.
That's great. Well, she preserves her culture and her accent, and she must talk to her family a lot. So there you go.
Right.
That's great. Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, is there any sneak preview that you can give me on any upcoming guests or anybody on your wish list of guests that you would want to have and reveal?
All right. Well, we won't be doing the television broadcast anytime soon because of the COVID restrictions in the studio. We're not allowed to have people. We can't have cameramen. We can't have anybody in the studio floor other than the talent. It's kind of like what they do now on the late night news. You only have the the anchors in the studio, and the cameras are robotic, and all the production people are far away on the other side of the building doing all their production stuff. Kind of similar to what we have here, but we don't have robotic cameras. So we can't have camera people in there and production people. For a show like mine, After Hours at TC Restani, is probably, you have a production crew of probably about 7 or 8 people behind the scenes that are doing, all the production work. You have a director, a technical director, lighting director, audio person, cameraman, floor director, blah, 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 blah. So it's more than just putting a camera on a tripod and hitting record. So we don't know when we'll be coming back to do our television version of After Hours at TC Restani. We haven't done a television show broadcast since February 9th of 2020. That was the last time we did a television production. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go the Zoom route because I think Zoom looks like junk, and it doesn't sound that good, and we have a big, humongous set that really needs to be covered with multiple cameras, and you have to have my co-host, Colonel Bill Montana, and exciting guests. We can't do that, so we have a big restriction on that. But what we do in the meantime is we do a podcast. It's a different version of the show. It's a long-form show, about an hour long, and it's stuff that we really can't talk about on television. You know what? You're a television guy. There's restrictions what you can talk about on television and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But on podcasts that are streaming online, anything goes. So myself and Abigail, Abby, OMG, Abby. Just come down here and really just shoot the crap about what's on our mind. We want to incorporate other guests onto the program, so we're going to be looking into that, going down the line, because we're really waiting for, everybody say, okay, COVID restrictions are being lifted, you can bring this many people in, and we would love to be back doing the talk show. And the person, my ultimate guest that I want to have on the program, being that I'm a Star Wars fan, Len, you know this, do you know who Daisy Ridley is?
I do not.
Did you see the last 3 Star Wars movies that come out in 2015, 2017, and 2019?
I hate to admit this to you, TC, but I've not.
Okay. Well, I know. You're busy sitting there watching Lost in Space reruns on MeTV to understand this, but...
Actually, it's Gunsmoke.
Okay, well, Gunsmoke, too. Well, Daisy Ridley she's the cutest thing I've ever seen in the world, and I want her on the program. And she played the heroine in the new Star Wars movies. Her character was called Rey. She's the ultimate guest that I want to have on this program.
And where does she live?
Probably in England. But, eventually, once the COVID, all this crap goes away, she'll be doing Comic-Con. So if she comes to Boston or somewhere close, we'll make contact and we'll get her on the program.
Right. Well, gee. That's a dream, and you got to stick to your dreams. That's what this show is all about. And
speaking of dreams, Len, can I give out my my information where people may want to contact the program?
Do it, man.
All right. You can visit me on my website, which is tcrestani.com. That is tcrestani.com. And follow me on Twitter. I live on Twitter. Len knows this. My Twitter handle is @AfterHoursTC. So if you want to come out, hang around, talk about anything you want to talk about, who knows? Maybe you one day will be a guest on After Hours with TC Restani.
My final question for this interview, TC, very serious one. Will you ever cut your hair and shave the chops?
You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit in the wind. You don't mess with the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with TC.
All right. And on that note, thank you for joining me on What Do You Want to Do, TC? Advice for the young?
Stay young.
As far as what they want to do.
If you can dream it, you can do it. But, if you don't have the right connections or the right money, everybody's got a price, as the $1 Million Man would say.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, TC.
Thank you, Len.
This is Leonard Caplan saying so long for What Do You Want to Do? And thank you for joining us. And what do you want to do?